Luke 14. We're going to finish the chapter. I was tempted to say, as I came up here, that this is one of the more difficult and controversial passages in the Bible. So we're going to skip it and move on to Luke 15, and we'll talk about the prodigal son and all that happy stuff. But we can't do that. Not when you teach verse by verse through the Bible. And so here we are at a passage that is radical. And I think understanding it and applying it is vital for our lives. So this is Luke 14, and it's verses 25 through 35. I'm going to read the entire passage, and then we'll come back to it. Now great multitudes, Luke 14:25, were going along with him, and he turned and said to them, "If anyone comes to me and does not hate his own father and mother and wife and children and brothers and sisters, yes, and even his own life, he cannot be my disciple." Luke 14:27. "Whoever does not carry his own cross and come after me," notice the repetition, "cannot be my disciple. For which one of you, when he wants to build a tower, does not first sit down and calculate the cost to see if he has enough to complete it? Otherwise, when he has laid a foundation and is not able to finish, all who observe it begin to ridicule him, saying, 'This man began to build and was not able to finish.'" 31. "Or what king, when he sets out to meet another king in battle, will not first sit down and take counsel whether he's strong enough with 10,000 men to encounter the one coming against him with 20,000? Or else, while the other is still far away, he sends a delegation and asks terms of peace. So therefore, no one of you can be my disciple who does not give up all his own possessions. Therefore, salt is good. But if even salt has become tasteless, with what will it be seasoned? It is useless," 35, "either for the soil or for the manure pile. It is thrown out. He who has ears to hear, let him hear." And all God's people said, "Amen." Wow, I thought you were going to say ouch collectively. Because as I read this passage, that's what I said. Ouch. Lord, can you get somebody else to teach on this? Because I'm not sure that anybody measures up to this command. Demand. So what is discipleship? Well, if you look at the end of of the passage that we looked at 2 weeks ago, remember that Jesus was at a dinner party at a Pharisee's house. Look at verse 17 of the same chapter, chapter 14. And at the dinner hour, he describes this scene. He sent a slave, the one giving a big dinner here, pictured as the master, to say to those who had been invited, "Come, for everything is ready now." But they all alike began to make excuses, 14:18. The first one said to him, "I bought a piece of land and I need to go out and look at it. Please consider me excused." Another one said, "I bought 5 yoke of oxen and I'm going to try them out. Please consider me excused." And another one said, "I've married a wife and for that reason I cannot come." You're laughing because you remember what I said about that a few weeks ago, right? That's the only legitimate excuse that we see of the three. My wife said I cannot come to the dinner. But anyway, and the slave came back and reported this to his master, and then the head of the household became angry. And remember, as the story ends, he sends his slaves out into the street, under the hedges, and he says, "Compel them to come into my house that my house may be full." When you begin to study this issue of the invitation to salvation and discipleship, there's a little bit of a debate among evangelicals about whether or not when one becomes a Christian, you're automatically a disciple. I would say to you that you're not. That there is a road to discipleship, that there is a process by which Jesus is calling you to a deeper commitment. When you first become saved, I don't think you're automatically in the category of a disciple. You're probably, if you're like me many years ago, when I first came into the kingdom, I was so messed up, I didn't know which way was up. And God began little by little to work in my life. And one of the illustrations that really caught my eye as I was growing in the Lord was a hot air balloon illustration where there's bags of sand that weigh down that balloon. And that each time a bag of sand is thrown out of the hot air balloon, it rises a little higher. That was my life. I'm sure you could relate to that. And then another thing would go out of my life. The Lord would challenge me about something else. Some other thing that appealed to my flesh. Something that was weighing me down. And that bag of sand would finally go out, and then the balloon would rise a little higher. That's discipleship. It is a road. It is a process. And if you were to take some stock of the evangelical church today and ask yourself this question, how many committed disciples do you think there are in the professing evangelical church today? And how many people do you think are just spectators of the church? Simply just coming to an event, if you will. And I think, sadly, we've pandered to this approach because we've made church about making people feel comfortable. Jesus did not do that. Jesus intentionally is rocking people's worlds right now. And the question that you have to ask as a student of the Bible is, why does he do it? Remember in Luke 9:51, the Gospel of Luke kind of transitioned, and Jesus started moving to Jerusalem. His face was set like flint towards Jerusalem, and he was going what? To die. And so I think Jesus is intentionally using what we call hyperbolic language, radical language to kind of slap you in the face, to shake the bushes, because he is going not to sit on a throne at this point. He is going where? To a cross. And there were people in the crowd that were saying of Jesus, man, you know what? He multiplies food. You can get free meals from this guy. He heals people's bodies. If you're sick, you can get a healing. He does miracles. He even puts the Pharisees and the religious leaders in their place. It's so great to watch it work. And there were people going along. And Luke 9:25 says this very thing. It says, now great multitudes, 14:25. I'm going to get the right chapter. Luke 14:25. Great multitudes in the NAS were going along with him. And I think that's the issue. There are many people just going along. And there are many people perhaps in the church today, and I'm talking about the church as a whole, who are just going along for the ride. They're just there. Why are they there? Because somebody said that that's what you should do. Because a family member, maybe they grew up in a household, and that's what we do on Sunday. We go to church. But church is not a destination, folks. It's a people. Amen? We are the church. It's not somewhere we go to. It's something that we are. And Jesus is moving in the shadow of the cross, and he's saying, look, if you're going to go with me all the way to Jerusalem, to that cross, you need to know what's at the end of this road. And 11 of the 12 apostles would also experience a martyr's death. Now the question becomes then, why follow? If that's what this is about, if it's about a cross, if it's about a destination of death, if discipleship by definition is dying, then why would anybody bother? That's what makes it so difficult, folks. If you want a definition of discipleship, to be a disciple, you must die. Now, I'm not talking about a literal death for most of us. I'm talking about the death of taking up your cross and following. You must die to everything that you say is near and dear and release it to God. Many times in worship, we lift up our hands. We sing songs. I'm not sure if you guys really take stock of those words. I was doing that a little bit this morning thinking, these are radical words that we are singing to God. Do you realize when you sing them to God, you're basically saying, you're committing yourself to those things? It's radical. Leon Morris shares these words. This is actually William Barclay, recorded by Chuck Swindoll. He said, it is possible to be a follower of Jesus without being a disciple, to be a camp follower without being a soldier of the king, to be a hanger-on in some great work without pulling one's weight. Once someone was talking to a great scholar about a younger man. He said, quote, so-and-so tells me that he's one of your students. The teacher answered devastatingly, he may have attended my lectures, but he's not one of my students. There is a world of difference between attending lectures and being a student. It is one of the supreme handicaps of the church that in the church there are so many distant followers of Jesus and so few real disciples, close quote. You can hear sermons all day long. And that's what the people were doing. And I think Jesus has taken it up several notches because he realizes that unless these people really hear what this is about, they're going to be shocked. Jesus, contra a lot of the modern movements, is thinning the ranks on purpose, just like he did in John chapter 6. This is not the formula for church growth, by the way. But there's been a discovery in the church. It happened at Willow Creek in Chicago. Bill Hybels and his staff began to look at the results of their model. Their model was based upon kind of a marketing model where they would go into neighborhoods, they would take surveys of people, ask them why they didn't attend a church, and then they would build the church to cater to the things that unbelievers said. So when they went to a door and they did a survey, they'd say, Mr. and Mrs. Smith, why do you not come to church? And they say, well, the sermon's too long. So if the sermon was shorter, would you come? Maybe. Well, what else? Well, I really like ping pong. So if you guys had ping pong tournaments at the church, then I would come. So if we have ping pong, all right,